welcome everyone to Deep Drinks Podcast. My name is Dave, and I'm super excited for this episode, like I am with most episodes, but this episode, I had to stop myself in the pre-recording from asking any questions because the stuff that was coming out of the guest's mouth is absolute gold, and I can't wait to learn more about their journey. So my guest today is Ryan Coltastic. She's a content creator with 125,000 TikTok followers and I'm going to screw this up, an ex-auxiliary pioneer of the Jehovah's Witnesses, and she was a Jehovah's Witness for 40 years. Welcome, Ryan Coltastic.
Hello, you did well. I was clapping behind stage for you.
Did I say it right? I was practicing.
Yeah, you did good. Auxiliary pioneer. It's a big joke anyway. So you did excellent.
So thank you. Well, we're drinking margaritas. And I'm going to pour myself one, and I haven't got mine mixed up yet. So as I do that, I just wanted to jump. What is an auxiliary pioneer, and what did you preach about?
Okay, so here's the joke. Auxiliary pioneering is what the Jehovah's Witness call when you dedicate a good portion of your time to field ministry, going door to door, letter writing, campaigning. It's preaching about the Jehovah's Witnesses, proselytizing. It could be going overseas, traveling to where the need is greater, so they call it. And when I was young, probably spent somewhere around 15 hours, maybe 20 hours a month preaching. So that basically equals out to a few hours every weekend. Yeah. Going door to door, likely knocking on the doors of my friends from high school and having to embarrass myself and talk about how they could live forever. And after I left, years later, this is just recent, they started to change their hour requirement. So normally most people will hit that 15, 20-hour mark, and that's just a normal everyday kind of Jehovah's Witness. But if you want to be special and be an auxiliary pioneer, then you go balls to the wall. Well, they lowered those requirements because not many people were reaching them anymore, and because of COVID restrictions. So that's respectable. And they lowered down auxiliary pioneer to 15, I think it was, or 12 hours, when normally it would be like 30, 40, something like that. So I was like, I didn't realize that when I was a teenager, I was auxiliary pioneering. I wasn't, but I'm going to take that title because you don't get many titles as a woman in the JW organization. So yeah, I'm going to snatch that title and I'm going to wear that crown.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Same for me. Like I was in the role of a youth pastor, but I was never ordained. Like I never got to the stage where they like bring you before the people and like I don't know what we call them in Pentecostal churches. It wasn't like bishops or anything, but like the higher up people. And that's years down the track. Most youth pastors don't get there until they become an associate pastor. But I say I was a youth pastor, but for the first little while I felt uncomfortable about that because I was like, what if someone calls me out? What if someone's like, you were never ordained? I'm like, well, yeah, I guess it's true, but you got to claim it. You've got to claim it.
I'm taking it. I really don't care. Say I was, say I wasn't. I know in my heart what I was doing as a teenager, embarrassing myself all for the Lord, for the Lord's work.
Did it make you popular at school?
You know what? I have to say that I probably was the definition of living a double life. And it wasn't necessarily intentional. It was a daily fight in my head with myself, like waking up every day. This day I'm going to do better. This day I'm going to make Jehovah proud. So weirdly enough, after like years of being picked on, I somehow became popular in high school. I don't know how I managed that, but I could do nothing with it. I couldn't hang out with friends. I couldn't go to the dances. Like it didn't mean anything other than I had friends at school who I was trying to fit in with. Meanwhile, I'm not necessarily behaving in the most honorable, I guess, way for a Jehovah's Witness. I was doing my best. I was just a kid.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Did you what did you preach about when you go door to door? Like, is it did you touch on everything? Was it like the end of the world stuff? Did you talk about
So
yeah.
they prepare you with what is called the Theocratic Ministry. So this is like a school that we go to every week. It's a meeting. So we go to the Kingdom Hall, to the church. And usually, I believe it was on Thursdays where we would have this school and you would practice. So, like for me specifically as a woman, I wouldn't be able to stand at a podium and talk to people in the audience, but I could pretend to be having a Bible study with another woman. I could be at a door talking to, a householder and witnessing. So we would practice. So, it's kind of just like MLM. It's like sales stuff. They tell you when you go up to somebody's door, like maybe compliment something in the yard, try to draw them in. There are witnesses who will comb the obituaries and they'll contact
Ooh.
people that way. Oh, yeah, it's very predatory. Or they'll write letters to people whose family member just died, kind of like an ambulance chaser, but the Jehovah's do it. Jehovah's Witnesses do it in that manner. But it would always be a pleasant message. Like usually well, they think it's pleasant. To me, I could probably see through the facade, but to them, it would be like, hey, David, I didn't know if you knew this, but God intended for this earth to be here forever. And we were actually supposed to live here as humans together with the animals. Wouldn't that be amazing to live in a paradise where God is ruling and we don't have to worry about Satan anymore? Wouldn't you look forward to a life like that? And there you have it.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's what you
wow.
do. Mhm.
We had some Jehovah's Witnesses drop off some magazines to our workplace, and I just remember it was the perfect symbolism for how religion kind of brings you in. The first magazine had a
Mm.
cover and it said, "Is there more to life?" or something, and then the second one was like, "How to become," no, the first one was like being a good family man or being a good family or something, and the second one was like, "Is there more to life?" And the third one was like, "What happens after we die?" And the fourth one was like, "Angels and demons and the end of the world." And I was like, "This is
Right.
a perfect progression." They get you in with something like complimenting your garden, asking, "Where's your partner? Like, have
Mhm.
they recently died? That's sad. Are they in a good place? We can find out." Like, and then eventually you get to these like crazy belief systems where you're refusing blood and people are dying, and
Exactly.
and I just thought it was so symbolic of not just the Jehovah's Witnesses but many religions, and yeah, it's wild. Were you born into it?
So this is where it gets a little dicey. I wouldn't consider myself born in. My
Hmm.
father was Catholic, and my mom maybe some kind of Christian, I guess you could say. But my mom's parents started my grandmother basically started studying with a Jehovah's Witness who came to her door one day, and took a long time, but eventually they became Jehovah's Witnesses. And it didn't get to my mom until I was somewhere around, I don't know, I would say somewhere around 6 to 10. My parents were kind of dilly dallying with it until they finally made a change and they both converted. So
Hmm.
it took a few years for that to happen. It was like a slow process. Um, so I wouldn't see. Here's the thing: I didn't really celebrate holidays either. So even though I was worldly, I don't know what you want to call it, a normal everyday person, I wasn't really celebrating Christmas all like that or birthdays all like that. I did sometimes get presents every once in a while. That would happen, but it was hit or miss. I don't really remember anything too great, except for the times where we went to my dad's side of the family who did celebrate because they were Catholic. I remember
Mm.
one or two Christmases there, and that was like the only Christmases I ever had.
Mm.
So, um, yeah, it's not until later where it really took in effect for me, like a life changing effect.
Mm.
Yeah, it's
So
kind of weird.
yeah, no, I am so thankful to my mum and dad, because I do remember Jehovah's Witnesses coming into our family and having Bible studies with my parents for weeks and weeks and weeks, and eventually they stopped. But mum and dad were right
Oh,
on the cusp of becoming Jehovah's Witnesses, and that would have messed me up. I reckon.
your
That
trajectory would have went,
yeah, it would have been a
kiss your
very different
education
story.
goodbye. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, what happens when someone goes from, I guess, just like normal worldly people to becoming Jehovah's Witnesses?
Oh,
Like,
that's the
what
thing.
what are some of the things that, like you said, no education? What does that mean?
Gonna reel you in.
Yeah.
Okay, so flat out, the Jehovah's Witness organization teaches that education is from Satan. Like it's
Ah.
all Satan's wicked worldly system. He controls the media, he controls the governments, he controls education. So the
I
only
have some
education,
Christian family members who think the same thing.
yeah, you know what it is. It isn't just a JW thing. This is
Yeah.
unfortunately tactics of high control religion. Keep them stupid, right? Keep them
Yeah.
working in laborious jobs. And doesn't mean that don't have to have brains to have laborious jobs. I mean, you need to know math and have to have a lot of skills. I get that. But when the only jobs, when they're pigeonholing you into a certain kind of job, which is usually for Jehovah's Witnesses, like driving bus, cleaning, just things where you can be super flexible. Think of it that way, where you can be super flexible with your time because you need to have off, your Saturday mornings so you can go out and field service, your Sunday mornings so you can go to Kingdom Hall, and your Thursdays so you can go to Kingdom Hall. And likely for other people, again, if you're pursuing auxiliary pioneering or something of that nature, then you need even more flexibility to be able to have off. So you only get a certain window of career opportunity. And there's some jobs that you're not even allowed to have because it would be considered
Too worldly.
being too yeah, exactly. It would be considered
Like,
too worldly.
I'm sure there are things like you probably couldn't be a stripper and be
Right.
happy.
Oh, hell
But like,
no.
are there any that are surprising? Like, are there any that are like,
Well, let's say, for instance, okay, my friend in the chat, his name is James, former to free. He is a welder. Say he wanted to get a job welding for a Navy ship or something like that. There is a possibility that he wouldn't be allowed to have that job because has something to do with like war
the
and
military?
government. Right,
Okay.
exactly. There's rules like that. And see, it's really difficult because the elites, people like celebrities, it's a bit different for them, like Serena Williams. Like there's freedom for a lot of these celebrities because they can be the face of the organization. They can look like they're living, your everyday normal life. And meanwhile, people like you and I, the little plebes, the nobodies, we're getting held to a different standard. But like for me, I don't even like saying this. Okay, so I used to model. I hate talking about it. So I did used to model just for a very short period of time, but it was something that I ended up not pursuing because it's not really, at least back then, 40, whatever. Okay, it wasn't 40 years ago at this point, but 30 something years ago, it was kind of looked down upon in the Jehovah's Witness organization. But we got models, we got influencers today. Like things have really changed. As long as you are making the Jehovah's Witnesses look good, they're all for it. And people, so Serena Williams could advertise beer. She could probably even advertise marijuana, and they would probably be okay with that because she is high profile. Yeah, because that draws people in. They love that. They love the fact that Prince was a JW, that Michael Jackson, but like they brag about this stuff all the time, like in JW circles. Like this is, oh wow, see, we're normal people too. Okay.
Yeah, interesting. So, wow. So I guess, what are your earliest memories when it comes to like being a Jehovah's Witness when you first, like, I guess, transitioned over?
See, this is what got us. So as a child, like I lived a really wild life, like really unscripted kind of life. Um, my parents were drug users. So, and they were very young. My mom was 14 when she got pregnant with me. My father was 19. She was 15 when she had me. So, I spent a lot of my childhood at parties, drinking as a child, like 4 or 5 years old, getting drunk. I remember, and I used to have a good
Wow.
time, but I had a good time. And I don't
Yeah.
even have a proclivity for drinking. Like, this is
Yeah.
like, I don't know how I avoided
Yeah.
being an
That's great.
alcoholic, but I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not. Yeah, so it was really a rough childhood. So that's why, like, having those weird, like, family memories is just like, it's not like a big deal for me because they just weren't a big deal then. Like, celebrating holidays, like even today, is just not really a big deal to me because it just never really was, even when we weren't
Yeah.
Jehovah's Witnesses, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. That
So,
makes sense.
so for me, this is what got me. Your question was like, what was like the noticeable difference, right? Like, what did it feel
Mm.
like coming from being worldly to being a Jehovah's Witness? And everybody in the comment section will know exactly what I'm probably going to say, but the love bombing is the first thing that you notice. It's like a wave, and I remember it. Um, I had a lot of love in my life. It wasn't that I didn't. It's not that my parents didn't love me. My parents just didn't have the tools to they were
Mm.
children taking care of a child. And I was a menace. Like, I was a menace to society. The boundless energy. Trauma also, you add a little trauma in there. I'm just a weird kid. And, my parents dealing with somebody somebody like me was probably a little difficult for them. But anyway, so when you first come in, my parents were trying to change your life. They wanted to get off the drugs, the alcohol, smoking, etc. They wanted to do good things, and that
Yeah.
is amazing. And I'm so proud of my parents. Like, you have no idea. They are amazing people. I love them. I love them so much for everything they have done for me. Um, I just feel bad that there's not better programs for people to do really good things in their life. So, you start going to this new place. Like, I go from not really having any structure in my life. A lot of times I didn't eat. Like, there were nights where I would eat dog food. That was all that was available to me.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and, hey, what I still remember the taste. It was actually quite good. Not even going to lie to you. But that was where my life was. And all of a
Mm.
sudden, I start to get some stability. We're actually having dinners. Now, guess what? Who's a picky eater now? Because I never had to eat these kind of foods before. When you live off of chips or whatever you can find in your refrigerator, sometimes you're being fed like broccoli. You're like, what the fuck is this green thing? Like, yeah, that
Yeah.
was a whole thing. So that part, like, I wasn't really fond of it, but I now had all these new friends that I was
Yeah.
getting to see. And because I'm just, 5, 6 years old, I don't really have to listen so much to the meeting. As long as I'm sitting there and sit fairly still, all's good. But before the meeting, I get to play. After the meeting, I get to play. And because we're being love bombed, we're actually being invited to people's like picnics and like I'm doing things like, okay, so I grew up going to parties, right? Like, where people are drinking, they're doing all kinds of like drugs and wild stuff. But now I'm going to parties where there's kids. Like, I'm not the only child at an adult party. There's
Mm.
children I can play with, and we're having a good time. I make like best friends with some of these kids. So for me, it was like, bloop, 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 bloop. I got like a level up.
Yeah.
And it's really not until, so my parents do this back and forth thing for several years with bubbity boobity boobity. You know how it is trying to get your life straight. Again, I'm so proud of them for what they did. And eventually things, well, I say change, but to be quite fair, like some of the stuff doesn't change. It just kind of transmutes into, like the patriarch kind of just moved the post a little bit. So my dad wasn't beating my mom's ass anymore and like breaking her nose. Now he's just a dick, right? So like it gets better, but then when you really think about it, it could have been even better. But again, this is the tools that you're working with inside of a high control religion. And this is what happens when you're getting counseled by people who have no training whatsoever to even help somebody who's an alcoholic or who are drug users, right? So, I mean, honestly, all said and done, they did pretty good. But again, it wasn't until around 12 years old that I realized.
Hang on a second. I just realized something. Hang on. I need to plug it.
No worries. I'll just keep talking. So it wasn't until around 12 years old where I realized that I wasn't happy with my life. I was very anxious, and now as a 40-something-year-old adult, I have the language, I have the verbiage to describe what I was going through. But at that time, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know why I would shake. I didn't know why I would always have these terrible, terrible, horrific nightmares, why I was obsessed with Armageddon. I didn't quite understand what was being fed to me, like the whole gravity of everything that's like taking place. And I wanted so badly to like play in sports and do all the other things that normal kids do. I was even okay without the birthdays and holidays. Like, I don't need gifts. It's just not my thing. I'm okay without gifts. If you just appreciate me, like, that's my love language. Just be my friend, love me, support me, care about me. That's all I want. So gifts were never like a really big thing for me. But as a Jehovah's Witness, like, it's like you don't really ever gift. At least in my family, there was never really like, and that kind of sounds mean, but it's just not how you show love and affection as a Jehovah's Witness. Like, as a child, to get the affection and approval of your parents, you have to be a good Jehovah's Witness. Like, it doesn't matter, at least again, and I'm speaking from experience, it doesn't matter if I'm doing great in school or any of that. It just matters that I'm answering at the meetings, that I'm going out in service, that I'm preparing my book study before the book study. Like, that's the big focus.
Yeah, the things that matter.
Not educate. That's the things that matter, not your education. And I just got really depressed, and I didn't know what depression was. And when the only feeling you're allowed to emote as a Jehovah's Witness is joy. Like, that's it. So if you're not expressing joy, what's wrong with you? Like, then you start getting those thought-stopping cliches from people. Like, well, Jehovah will provide. You just need to, dedicate your life to Jehovah more. You need to put on that new personality. You're doing something that's making you sad. So you should probably just stop being a shit person. That's really just how it comes across.
And I totally understand. Have you seen recently there was the end of the world was supposed to happen a couple of weeks ago, we had friends and family who warned us about it, and it was like it didn't happen. But it's like, if it didn't happen, God was just giving more time for people to get saved, so that was a win. Which is like, it's funny because like you could make up anything, and
right.
You'd be like, I'm going to get $1 million tomorrow, and if not, God was using that $1 million for another person in need or something. And it's like, so it's win-win. And it's like, so it comes true. Like, like, or another thing is, I remember once having really bad anxiety when I was deconstructing my faith. Just randomly, I would get anxiety from time to time, and I was having like a kind of a panic attack or an anxiety one night, and I thought to myself, I'm going to pray, and that's where I'm going to wake up and everything's going to be fine. And then I thought to myself, hang on, let's test this, and I said, okay, I'm going to pray to myself or to a jug of milk. I can't remember which one. I said, and I'm going to ask the jug of milk or myself. I think I said to myself that time, and I said, David, I pray that tomorrow you wake up and everything's fine and you're not anxious, whatever. Next day, I woke up and I just felt so good. I went to work. It was about midday, and I was like, I'm having a really awesome day today. And then I remembered, wait, last night you were anxious and you prayed to yourself. And then I thought, huh. And I was like, if I prayed to God, that would have been like a win for God. That would have been like, God healed me of this anxiety for the day. Like, this is great. So it was like it couldn't have, and if it did, and if I was anxious the next day, I would just keep praying. There's no way for it to fail. There's no way for it to not work.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, you have an anecdotal kind of story of like when you pray. And I just always felt it was being religious was difficult for me. And I don't know if it's because I didn't grow up in it and I wasn't super familiar with religious ideas, because I didn't like I'd go into the Kingdom Hall with my grandparents, and it wasn't like I'd never gone to the Kingdom Hall. That's kind of typical for people who are coming into what they call the truth, is that you're going to the Kingdom Hall for a long time before you really start to like amp it up and get serious, because that's kind of how it goes. That's what is expected of you. At some point you're supposed to take the steps that you know you need to take and be responsible, because now you know the truth. But that anecdotal story kind of put the nail in my coffin in a way, because I always looked at religion like, well, if it helped my mom and dad, right? Like, I saw my mom and dad change, then there's got, like, it must just be me that when I pray, God doesn't hear me. Like, God must not like me. I don't know, I don't know what it is I did. But I think that's just kind of like a natural thinking when you're not really happy in your life. Like, you're not happy with some of the stuff that's happening in your life. And like, as a kid, you're praying and nothing changes. You just kind of think, well, it must just be me. There's something I'm doing, because all these other people are saying how great God is and all their prayers being answered. And I'm just kind of wondering, like, when are things going to get better? When's it going to change? And, and like I said, it did eventually. But the problem is I was always living in that moment of change, like putting myself, well, my life can't be that bad because look where I've come from, right? And I never really understood everything that I had truly been through as a kid, because our life was kind of put on a pedestal for other people as an example. Well, look at brother and sister do, and look what happened to them, and their life was this, and now their life is that, and look how good everybody is, and look how happy their child is, and So you kind of just learn to fake it, because everybody seems to think that, well, you should be happy now. Okay, so what? You saw all that. Okay, you weren't fed. Okay, well, too bad, so sad. Your life is okay now. So what are you sad about? And that's how a lot of things are handled. It's really difficult to learn how to articulate yourself in that world when you should just be happy that things are the way they are now. And my mom and dad, they probably need some therapy too, but I needed, I'm sure, therapy. I can't recommend it enough to people. Like, please, if you need to talk to somebody,
I think I say to people that I think everyone should go to therapy. Like, everyone should go to therapy just to check in. Even if it's not like a huge thing, but just going to like talk about some stuff in your head. Like, I think it's really important. It's like been life-changing for me. And I love it.
Yeah, medicine, therapy, definitely recommend it. But Yeah, so that was kind of a problem for me. Like, I never really sat in everything that I saw, all the abuse. Like, I never really dealt with any of that. And I think
Mm,
that now I'm like at an age where I'm like, oh, I'm a lot wiser. I understand a lot more how complex these, control systems are that are set up. Um, and it just makes me sad that, our government has given the power to churches, like it supports churches, gives money to churches to put forward social programs for people to help people, even some of these like 12-step programs. And they're really it's just a big old circle jerk. It's one big enclosed, it's just another enclosed system. Like we
mm,
move from one system to another, but they're all upholding the same rules. And if we had the money, instead of giving it to the churches, if we had those programs, maybe my dad wouldn't be still an alcoholic. Maybe he wouldn't be um having some of the issues that he's having now, because he would have got the real help he needed. He would have, maybe even been in group therapy of some sorts, like talking to other people with the same issues. Instead, he's
yeah.
stuck reading Bible verses. You have a bunch of people telling you, again, those cliches like, oh, you just need to read the Bible more. You need to pray harder. It's all on you. It's your issue. And if you can't fix it, too bad, so sad. And
Mm.
um, now I see how, like, my parents were once that great pedestal example of people who changed, but now on the flip side, they're not prepared for retirement because, I thought I
Oh,
was I thought I was going to die before high school ended, right? So, we have a lot of
because of
people.
Armageddon and all that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And there's a lot of failed prophecies within the organization. It started in the 1800s. They eventually stopped at 1975. That was the last date that they've thrown out. But subsequently, the message is still, it's right around the corner. So now they don't have a
Oh,
date foretold, but it's like, the people that we're talking about, it's like, oh, it's going to be October 4th. And then whenever that we have an emergency broadcast system thing coming tomorrow, and it's going to hit our phones. So a lot of evangelicals, weird spiritualists, I don't know what the hell they're doing, are saying that the 5G is going to penetrate
oh,
our COVID
I'm getting
shots.
so
And
triggered. I'm getting so triggered by everything you're saying because that's
help me.
I can just so relate. So let me just pump the brakes for a second. First of all,
Sure.
Myth Vision just oh snap, it's so great to see Ryan. Thanks for being a member
Thank
for
you,
six
Derek.
months, Myth Vision. Talking about the end of the world, Ryan, Derek and I did an episode on his channel where I talk about my deconstruction process, but part of that was discovering that Jesus predicted that the end of the Armageddon would happen in his disciples' lifetime, and that didn't happen.
Right.
And we go right over that. So I recommend people go and watch that and subscribe to Myth Vision, of course. But someone
I
else
love
who should go
Derek.
subscribe. Oh, amazing, amazing! Like he's one of my
He's
favorite
helped
people. But
he's like really been a catalyst to my waking up. He's really like paved the way for me. So
yeah,
I adore his content.
I know, and he's. We could have a whole. I should just
We
bring
can
on everyone, and
fangirl if you want.
all just talk about Derek.
We'll just talk about
But
Derek tonight. That's it.
but people should also go subscribe to your YouTube channel. So you've got Ryan Coltastic, your YouTube channel here, and something you were just mentioning a second ago is taxing the churches, or alluding to that. Your handle on TikTok is tax the churches, and
Right.
we can talk more about that. And you have other YouTube channels. I don't have them up, but what I'll do is you send them to me in private. I'm going to
Yeah.
post them in the chat now, and people can go check them out. But can you tell us a little bit about what you do and why you want to tax the churches? Like, what about these poor little charities, and you're just there wanting to take away their
How
religious
dare I?
rights? No, tell us
Well,
about
this
it.
is one of the just say for instance, we're talking about COVID. So I don't know how familiar you are with what some of the programs the government was doing here. But one of them was like food boxes. They were taking like fresh produce and things of that nature, and they were being shipped to churches or places where the community could come pick them up. So the Jehovah's Witnesses got in on this food program. So they have all these food boxes. Well, they are telling people, and I believe they even put notes with some of these boxes that said that this was provided by Jehovah. So it gives the members the appearance that this food came from the organization, when in fact, this food came from the government, right? Which is coming from our taxes.
But they'll be like, no, everything comes from Jehovah. Like they'll find some like, this
oh
is
gosh,
it.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right. And that's the cognitive dissonance. Everything, like Jehovah's going to provide everything. No matter what it is, they will have a way in twisting it to make it look as though, it's coming directly from him. But I forget how much money would go into social systems, things of that nature that would help people, instead of going to organizations like the Jehovah's Witness, because these churches are supposed to provide for the community, a service to the community. And little Miss Pickles is going off. But their service to the community is their proselytizing. So their service is just wasting your time knocking on your door with a message that's fake as fuck, because there's no paradise coming. Nobody's going to save you.
Well, and it's counter to what the government sets up in regards to like, healthcare and things like, oh, you need a blood transfusion, and like it's like there's these groups going around like stopping people. So it's ridiculous. I'm with you there. It's when I was part of the Pentecostal denomination, the denomination, I'll call it the church, but I was part of the Christian Outreach Center, now called Inc. I don't know why they chose to now be called Inc., International Network of Churches, but they were called the Christian Outreach Center. And we went down to Brisbane for a business conference, and we celebrated becoming a $1 billion organization. And that was like the thing. It was like, well done. It was like, well done. We're $1 billion. Right. And it was like, I fell asleep in that meeting. Although no joke, but it was all the pastors and youth pastors and everyone like from the organization came together at the conference. And it was like, and it was, a bunch of old guys on stage. We're now worth $1 billion.
Oh.
Like, yay.
And that's another thing. It's just like the leaders, the higher ups, it's just a bunch of white old dudes. Okay, there's one black man. Okay, fine. I'll give you that. But there's nine men who run the show. They call the shots. They recently kicked one to the curb. It's created such a fuss. It's been a very exciting ride for us in the XJW community to just wonder, like, oh, why did they kick this guy out? What's happening behind the scenes that, a governing body member just got removed? And, of course, being the organization that they are, there is no transparency. So we'll never know unless somebody leaks the information. They keep that under wraps. But, there's no representation. Women are not allowed to have any kind of authority inside of their organization. We certainly, our bodies are good enough to use. Like, you can use us for field service. We're allowed to talk to men at the door then. Like, that's absolutely fine. But we're not allowed to stand in front of a podium and speak to the audience like the men do. It's just super weird. And
that's sorry.
No, please.
That it's common in most religions. I think that as soon as you have religions that aren't equal, as soon as in regards to the rights that both both men and women can have, that if a religion has anything to do with slavery, if religion has this just speaks to me. Well, it can't obviously be from the creator of the universe, like unless that creator of the universe is someone that you shouldn't worship. Like it's silly. And you mentioned something before we started that blew my fucking mind.
Oh yeah,
ham.
I can't believe you didn't know that.
I didn't know about this. Yeah, let's talk about
this. Canned ham, right? That's what you said.
Canned ham. Tell us about this. So, like the curse of black skin or something?
Yeah, I cannot believe that you have not heard this. Everybody in the
No.
audience has probably heard me like talk ad nauseum about the curse of Ham. So this is not just a Jehovah's Witness thing, but I can specifically speak to the Jehovah's Witness beliefs. So when in the story of Noah, when you find out that when Noah finds out that his son has supposedly seen him naked, and I actually think that the story is more like his son Ham had sex with his wife. That's what I believe the true story is. And then we have a watered down, edited, redacted version in the Bible. But I believe that Ham has sex with his mother. She produces Canaan, the son Canaan. And because of that, Noah curses Canaan, the child. But Christians, misreading the verses, put the curse onto Ham, the person. And because that's, the Bible has all the lineages and genealogy, da 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 da. Well, Ham produces black skin. So they say that the curse that Noah put on Canaan was for the people of Canaan to be slaves, because that's the curse, is to be slaves to the brethren. So therefore, black people come from Ham and they are to be perpetual slaves. That is how the Jehovah's Witness render it. And that's how like Catholics, I read this one book, The Edicts of the Catholic Church, and it goes back hundreds and hundreds of years. And it just tells all the different church fathers who said that black people were cursed because they were sinful. That's why their skin was dark like that. Just all kinds of disgusting, demoralizing, like demonizing thoughts. And eventually, obviously, this belief slowly went away, but it wasn't until, I apologize, I could get you the exact quote, but it was somewhere around the 1800s, I believe, the curse of black skin was finally removed, like in the church books.
Right. Whoa. So can we still get our hands on, like, I guess, early 1800s or 1700s?
I have a book. I have the book. I use it all the time. It's Maxwell something. But yeah, just remind me and I'll get you the link. It's online. You can look through it. All the church fathers that you know and love are in there talking about why black people should be kept as slaves because it was good for them, etc., etc.
Does it go back to, does it tie that connection with Ham, or is that,
Yeah.
is that
They talk about
wow.
Ham as well. Yes. They go through why they owned slaves, why Abraham owned slaves. It's wild that you can just take old literature like that and weaponize it against an entire race of people. And then, like, do you know about the slave Bible? I'm assuming you know about the slave Bible.
I know about the slave Bible. I've looked
Okay.
like this.
Okay.
I've done way more on slavery than I've ever wanted to. But tell us about the
Me
slave.
too.
Tell us about the slave Bible. Yeah, no, tell us about
So
the
the
slave Bible.
slave Bible, again, is a very redacted Bible that is literally taken out everything except for the parts where you're supposed to obey your slave master, be a happy slave,
Remove
be in
the
subjection.
Exodus.
Yeah, they had nothing about freedom, honey.
Yeah, and they
No,
would
it's
give that to
all
the
about
slaves.
oppression. Yes,
Yeah.
that was if they were allowed to read. If they were allowed to read, that is what they could read, is that Bible. Just pure indoctrination. Yeah. And if you're teaching people that this is their holy book and their holy book says that their skin color, like the Watchtower even put out an article that said that black people could pray and their skin would turn white. And they even gave an example of a black man who prayed and his skin turned white.
No.
Oh yeah,
Really?
we have all
When?
the screenshots, honey. Oh, I mean, this is like probably 1900s.
That's still not very long. That's not long ago at
30s-ish or
all.
something. Oh, no, it's not, but to Jehovah's Witnesses, see, this is the problem. For Jehovah's Witnesses, we're not allowed to look at outside sources. Like, we have to be very careful with what we can research. Like, thank goodness for the internet today. But back in my day, I mean, we didn't really have access to this kind of information. But what the organization has done is anything that's in print, because that's where you really search your information, is what's in print. They'll just tell you, hey, all your Revelation books, let's say, for instance, all your Revelation books, you need to hand those in, or you need to destroy them. So anything that they just don't want people to know about or forget about, they just poof. It just disappears just like that. And the witnesses are never the wiser.
It's like the 1984, like it's like that. It's like it's like the thought crimes and rewriting narratives. It's bizarre.
Exactly. Yeah.
How does the Jehovah's, so let's get into the doctrine of Jehovah's Witnesses a little bit. How does it differ from how did it start? How did it differ from normal Christianity? Sorry, I shouldn't say normal Christianity. How did it differ from Protestant or Catholic Christianity?
So the organization started with one man. His name is Charles Taze Russell, back in the 1800s. He was part of, I need to do more research, but he was part of the Millerites. I don't know if you heard of the Millerites, but they were another like Bible group. And that group was part of another group it's just all these sects that started to pop up around like the 1700s. There was just like this fever pitch of all these religions being created that wanted to read the Bible with the intention that they could figure out when the end of the world was coming. So like all of these doomsday religions started to sprout, and then from each one all these other ones start to come, like the Mormons and JWs and Seventh-day Adventists. Like these are all like kissing cousins. Like we're all super similar with some of our beliefs, not everything obviously. Like each one changes and adapts, just like religion has changed and adapted over time. Like we're all just taking these similar motifs and twisting them to our liking. That's exactly what like Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses would have done. You can see some similarities, but then huge differences in other things. Mormons are allowed to get an education. Jehovah's Witnesses are not allowed to get an education. Oh, wait, shoot. I forget what you were asking.
That's fine. This is at the time the alcohol starts to take effect. But
right? I'm like, it's tasting pretty good here.
Yeah, so like how do Jehovah's Witnesses differ from like Catholics and Christians?
So, okay. So obviously there's the holidays things. We don't celebrate holidays. The only holiday, if you want to call it that we celebrate, it's really a memorial, is we memorialize Jesus' death, where we pass the wine, they eat of his flesh, and those who eat of that are going to be the ones who go to heaven. So we don't, I keep saying we, like I still believe, but you know what I'm getting at. So we don't, they don't believe that the majority of people are going to heaven, because that's what kind of Catholicism banks on, is like, okay, you're going to get this reward. You're going to heaven. Everybody goes. You just got to like believe in Jesus. But Jehovah's Witnesses believe that the earth is going to turn into a paradise. So for normal everyday Joes like you, yourself, and me, our hope is to be able to live forever. So a resurrection, if we're good enough or deemed good enough, we'll be resurrected to a paradise on earth. We'll get to live forever in these beautiful bodies. God's going to pick an age where like our bodies were tip top shape. I don't know, like you want to send me back to like 21. Okay, honey, that works for me. I love that. And okay, so what else do they do? Okay, no Trinity whatsoever. They say, Jehovah's Witnesses say they don't prophesy, but that's all they're doing. It's prophesying when the end. They're prophesying when the end is going to come. So like, please, like save that for somebody else. Like I see what you're getting at. What are some of the other big differences, y'all? Y'all in the comment section probably know better than I do.
Eric from Skeptics and Scoundrels. Nissen 14, full moon every spring is Jesus night.
Hey, Eric. Nissen 14, baby.
Yeah, what is that?
Isn't that the date when Jesus died? Is that
I have
Passover?
no idea. we were more into the speaking in tongues and healing people kind of Christianity, so we didn't
None of
pay
that.
attention to a lot of this. Yeah.
None of that.
So
We don't. That's like bad. That's like devil. That's demons working through you, my friend. I don't know if you knew that, but you were possessed. Sorry.
Damn it.
Sorry to tell you.
I do have to say, my friend and boss in the chat before said Satan controls me. So that was,
I love it.
I don't know.
I hope he controls me. I keep asking him to come talk to me in the middle of the night. Everybody keeps ranting and raving that like we listen to this bad music, we say bad things about God, that demons are going to come have sex with us in the middle of the night. And hello, I've been waiting and nothing. Crickets. My basement is flooded, waiting for Satan to come take me.
I'm thinking about doing something similar, or at least talking to the person who's done this, but there is a person on TikTok who has asked every witch or religion to curse him, and they've sent him stuff. He's put it under his pillow. Like he's done everything
they've asked.
That. He's sent them his head, and he's just like, I'm still not cursed. I'm still not like, nothing's happened.
Yeah.
And like, so
I've thought of doing that myself, but then here's the thing, like I want people to have their beliefs. Like if it makes you happy, like do you. I just don't want your shit interfering with my autonomy.
Yeah.
End of. Well, do what you want to do.
That's how I express my religion of naturalism. This is going to be clipped for a debate that I do in the future. No, I'm kidding. So let me, one of the things I want to talk about in the doctrine is why can't you guys have blood? Sorry, why can't Jehovah's Witnesses have blood transfusions? That's bizarre to me.
So it all goes back to a dietary law in Leviticus, where it says that you're supposed to like pour out the blood on the ground. Blood is sacred. So even Jesus, so that is literally the scripture. I think there's another scripture in Acts or Romans where it says something about not eating stuff sacrificed to idols and blood. So it's mentioned again, but quite frankly, it's not really speaking about blood transfusions. It's still completely different, eating blood versus, it going into your bloodstream. I couldn't take blood to sustain my life. It's right. Like I can't just do that and never eat another thing.
That's where I get confused.
That's not how it works.
Ingest. It says to eat. That's where I get confused.
Right. So they've taken a dietary law and specifically changed it into something to kill people. Now, other people will say that this is, they're just doing what they think is the best. I don't believe it. I think this is a purposeful thing that they've done. I think they want to create victims. They want to create martyrs. They enjoy this perpetual victim mode. And these people are considered heroes. The people that die, the children that die, the thousands a year that die from refusing blood, they get put on the cover of the JW magazines. So these are heroes to the community. So that's why, in my opinion, it's like a trauma bond. They do all kinds of things to get us psychologically connected to other people. And, when you're in the hospital and the doctor, the nurses are telling you, you will die if you do not accept blood. I absolutely think that, if you want to have a procedure and not receive blood, like that's on you. That's fine. I think there are procedures that can be done without blood. It is a risk. It's another risk added to the procedure that you're having. But if it comes down to saving your life, right? Like if it comes down to saying like, my child on the table is either going to die or live, I would save my child. But Jehovah's Witnesses will fight to let their child die. They will have other brothers, which is called a hospital liaison committee. These are people who are meant to come and sit with you to ward off every single like nurse and doctor who come and try to whisper to you, to talk to you, to save your life. And it's coercion to die. You're sacrificing your child to a God when Jesus said that he wouldn't even obey the Sabbath if it meant saving somebody's life. So it doesn't make sense. That's why I believe it is intentional.
So I've heard stories, I don't know if this is true, of Jehovah's Witnesses like arriving at the entry of a hospital to stop family members from coming in to try and convince the person to have a blood transfusion. So there'll be Jehovah's Witnesses in the bed dying, needing a blood transfusion, and they'll send members of the church, or members of the church will stay in the main lobby area of the hospital and stop other family members from reaching them to try and convince them to take a blood transfusion. Have you heard of stories like that, or is that?
Well, I have an experience they didn't have hospital liaison committees at this time, but of course they had vultures that would do the job of a hospital liaison committee. So Jehovah's Witnesses carry what is called a blood card, just in case there are people in the audience who aren't aware. And you just carry it with you, and it basically waives your right, excuse me. It's a medical directive telling the EMT, whoever's taking care of you, you do not want blood, because you could be passed out. So on the back of the card are numbers for your emergency contact. So let's say, for instance, you have an emergency blood contact card, and on your card is not even your mother's phone number, but brother so-and-so's phone number. So that way the doctors call brother so-and-so and say, hey, David is here. He's going to die. He needs a blood transfusion. What do we do? Let him die. We're on our way. We're on our way to make sure this guy does not take blood, because, God forbid, we wouldn't want to have to shun him, but we certainly will. So anyway, my story, my grandfather, he was an avid motorcycle rider, and a woman clipped him, tried to go around him on the shoulder when he started to turn. So he turned, and she literally drove right into his leg and took his leg completely off. So from his knee down, took his leg off. And he bled so much that by the end of it, he was down to like 4 pints of blood. And I believe a normal healthy body is somewhere around 12 to 15, something like that. And I remember, because I was, we're going back in the vault. I was pregnant at the time, and I was disfellowshipped. So people were shunning me. But some people were kind enough to still be kind to me and talk to me. But some people just kind of looked at me and didn't want to talk to me because I was actively being shunned. But I remember just the rush of the doctors, and he needs blood, and no, we can't. Nope. No, he was awake. He's adamant he'd rather die. That's just how he'd rather go. Thankfully he lived. And he lived a long life as well. My grandfather is a very tough man. But yeah, I experienced being afraid that my grandfather was going to die right in front of me, and he was just let it happen. So it was really touch and go for several hours, and somehow he pulled through. But my big passion is telling people about, in this country, the infant mortality rate, the maternal mortality rate, our hospital system is just, it's not that great. Our healthcare, system is not that great to begin with. And then you add this other layer of, what is one of the biggest things that happen to somebody after they give birth? They hemorrhage. And it can happen at any given moment. It can happen while you're pregnant. There's so many things that could go wrong where you would need a blood transfusion. Your child might be born needing blood, and you have to let your child die. Could you imagine going through a day of labor to then just say, well, I have to let my child die? It breaks my heart, but it's common. Sorry, I just threw a lot of stuff at you.
No, excuse me for being frank, but
no, it's fine.
It comes across as a disgusting fucking religion like that.
Oh, it's disgusting. It's atrocious.
Imagine being someone, and I'm sorry if I've offended anyone who may be a Jehovah's Witness or something, but imagine getting that call, you being a brother of or whatever, and knowing that you have to make the call whether or not someone dies. And this victim complex that you have is totally made up. No, you're not a victim. You're this we are the we are the salt of the earth, we are waiting for Jesus' return, we're trying to save the world, is totally made up. And you're creating yourself like you're making yourself out to be a victim, while you're perpetuating the death of infants and
Yeah.
people who. And what's even worse is there's no direct. It's like a very ambiguous scripture. It's like a, very wishy-washy. It's
I
like,
don't even think it's ambiguous, to be quite frank. I think it's just a dietary restriction. Ain't got shit all to do with the medical field. I can't even believe that people fall for it. There's nothing else. Like, they don't pay attention to the other parts of Leviticus. They're not worried about their cloths mixing. They're not worried about eating seafood. That's why I'm telling you, it's seedy. They do this on purpose. It is intentional. This wasn't from inception, this belief started, they like touched and goed with it like somewhere in the 50s is where they were like figuring it out, I think. And like, I've had this conversation with one of my girlfriends who is a doctor, and we were discussing like breast milk has like different is it white blood cells? I forget, but it has like blood cells in it. Certain shots, I can't even think of the word, have immunoglobulin or what? Yeah. Thank you. Vaccines have blood in it. So if you really want to be nitpicky, then you couldn't breastfeed your child. You couldn't get your shot. That makes no sense whatsoever.
I think it goes even a step further in that the magical thinking of superstition, religious belief, and things like that. At a certain level, you start to have to ignore science. You have to ignore evolution. You have to ignore those things. And
exactly,
one of the things that you have to ignore is evolution. But eventually, you get to the stage where you start having to become a conspiracy theorist. The government's trying to kill us or whatever like that, whatever reason. I have friends like this.
Yeah.
And I have friends who rejected getting the COVID vaccine. I know a lot of people do. But one of the things that was shocking for me is I have friends who said they would rather die than get a blood transfusion from someone who has had the COVID-19 vaccination.
Wait, what?
Yeah, so they would rather they're like, if I'm not taking blood from anyone unless you can prove to me that they hadn't been vaccinated with the COVID-19 vaccine. And this is what I mean is like religious thinking goes so hand in hand with conspiratorial thinking.
Oh my God.
And then you come to the same problems when it comes to people's health and like what's important. It's something that's really bothersome for me. And actually, I usually do the super chats at the end, but Hang for She sent a $10 super chat on the same topic. And so I'll just ask it now. I understand Jehovah's Witnesses forbid blood transfusions, but how do they reconcile mosquito? Like, what if a mosquito bit Jesus and then bit someone else? Next knock on door, I want to ask them this.
But it's a very good question. Like, these are all the things that, if you, in my opinion, if you are any kind of religion that considers itself to be like proactive and wanting to really learn and keep up to date with, all the new understandings in the science and that would be the kind of question I'd ask. But they've not even asked the question, like, should we be doing this? Should we even be telling people no? Like, you're actively killing people. And I believe I've done this research. I have a crap ton of notes. I can't recall the numbers off the top of my head, but it's around like 1,000 people. This one Singapore study was like 1,000 people a year die from refusing blood. And that's not insignificant when you consider that you're dealing with a certain group of people. I don't know unless anybody else knows, there's another group who refuses blood transfusions, but you're dealing with like 8 million-ish people. So you're kind of like taken away from your pool, because matter of fact, the Jehovah's Witnesses, like when they're doing their door-to-door preaching work, they're not really getting a lot of converts. That work is just to keep them busy. It's an exercise in futility. It's on purpose to keep them busy, not really thinking. It's also so that way they get the door slammed in their face. It's that reinforcement that we're different. It's us against them. These people aren't like me. They don't want to understand what I'm trying to say. I want to save them. They're not getting it. And they consistently will refer like to Noah's Ark, and they'll say, Noah went and told everybody, hey, God's going to make it rain. He's going to make it flood. And they laughed at him. And it wasn't until the doors were closing on the ark, they were banging on it and crying. And that's exactly what it's going to be like with all these people that I've knocked on their doors. They're going to go, come to the kingdom halls looking for us to save them. Oh my God.
It's such a cheap way to feel superior, isn't it? Like it really is.
Yes. It's very self-righteous. The religion is very like you're very self-centered, you're very judgmental, you are in a go ask me a question.
It is. Most religions like that, but masquerading as humble and masquerading as like as quaint and yeah. Oh God,
exactly.
It drives me nuts.
Yeah. I think that's part of the like aesthetic. That's what they want. They want, the outside world to see them as these very humble, pleasant people. They will come to your town for their conventions, and they will leave the convention center even cleaner than when you left it. And they'll bring their business and their attitudes. And oh gosh, it's just a joy. Honey, they just want your money. These cities are just fighting over your money. They don't care about you as a person. They're not looking to switch religions. They just want you to come to their stadium and then go visit their restaurants. But, to the Jehovah's Witnesses, when they get like a puff piece, okay, so they have a convention and then they see themselves on the news. Oh, Action 6 News was here and they were showing like all the people coming into the convention center. Isn't it awesome for everybody to see like how great Jehovah is? And to them, that's like their whole world. But in reality, they're not really getting converts. It's just the children who are being baptized into this system over and over and over, but they're not really getting new people to come because most people are kind of starting to see through the bull crap. Not everybody, obviously. Not everybody's like up to date and uses social media, and not everybody researches organizations before they join them when they really should be researching even religions before you join them. So it's just like, oh, there's those Jehovah's Witnesses. They're really nice, but it's not for me. And that's the whole game. That's the game for the organization. The people don't know that. They think they're supposed to be winning people over, and they're going to take those nose like vitamins and pop them, and I'll get them next time. But the organization knows they're not going to really change hearts. But as long as they keep you busy thinking that's what's happening, you won't have time for hobbies. You won't have time for Google. You won't have time to talk to your friends at work. You're just going to be nose to the grind, preaching the end of the world because you know it's going to come any day.
How does the Jehovah's Witnesses look at, say, the gays and the transgenders? Like
the gays.
I'm sorry.
Gays.
Oh God! I had a friend. I had a gay friend. He's like, you need to stop calling him. You need to stop because he's a gay friend of mine. He says you need to stop saying the gays. I'm like, I say it as a joke. Like I say it. It's
funny. That's
It's off The Hangover, right? It's like I heard he's a gay.
My entire family, like we're just very gay out there people. So we say stuff like that too. And we know it's with love. It's
yeah. But I just need to clarify. I can't resist. I need to clarify for people because like what? No, I'm a huge ally. But yeah. So what are they like? How do the Jehovah's Witnesses look at that community?
It's very hate the sin, not the sinner.
Yeah.
And we all know that that's like just one of the biggest like bullshit things, because if I say anything bad about Christianity, like they won't accept if I say, well, I love the believer, but I hate the belief. Like, still, you can't talk about my God. Well, it's kind of like the same thing here, buddy. I'm making an analogy, and you're not picking up what I'm putting down.
Yeah.
So why is it okay for you, but it's not okay for me to say that? And the Jehovah's Witnesses will put forth like, oh no, we love gay people. They're one of, Jehovah's people. But at the end of the day, it's wrong. It's a sin. They say they're going to die. One of the higher ups, the governing body member, Stephen Lett, his nephew was a gay person, and sadly, he took his own life.
Oh.
And this man had the freaking audacity to use his nephew's tragic story to say something to the extent of that people know when they're resurrected, they won't be able to, basically be gay. So we know who he's speaking about, that he's speaking about his own nephew. And it just breaks my heart that, this is reality for some people. They believe that God doesn't love them. And that's just that. My heart hurts for them, because I don't look at the Bible and see any prohibition against homosexuality. I don't think that it's there. I think that's what Christians want to put in there to, put forward their hateful ideologies and their rhetoric. But I don't think that, because that didn't even exist then. That just wasn't a thing. So
I think I disagree with you, but
that's fine. Hey, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah, that's fine. But there is a book that I think you would love. It's called Christianity and Social Tolerance, and it's about how the church has changed their perspective about homosexuality over the course of like the last. So I think I'm on the same page with you in a lot of ways. I think that the way the church handles it, but I don't know if I think there are some verses that comes across.
I see it as more as the actual. From what it's been explained to me, I guess I should erase. As it's been explained to me, that it's more of the penetration that is the issue, and it's looked as like
the
person who's getting penetrated, right? But it's not necessarily like they didn't have that. Well, from what I'm told, they didn't have that term "gay," that boxed in term.
It's the act of.
It's the act of, right? Yeah. Because now
I agree with you there.
but it's like so stupid. Like, why do you care what's between my legs? Why do you care if I'm eating box? Like, this is just none of your freaking business what I do in my bedroom. Like, it's pervert. You're more perverse than I am, because you want to know what I'm doing.
Yeah, there's an amazing poem by Folk. Oh, it's from the 1600s. I'm not going to remember the name. It's quoted at the start of Christopher Hitchens' book. Oh my gosh, what is it? Oh my gosh, the margarita's hitting me.
I wouldn't know. I'm not that God read.
God is not great. It's by Christian.
Oh, okay.
He says it's created sick, commanded to be sound. That's like the line, the punchline. Created sick, commanded to be sound. And it was actually a Christian poem. But it's like, he's using it. He uses it at the start, like, because it's like, yeah, you're created a certain way and then told it's wrong. Made this.
It's so funny. I made this. I have the weirdest video.
Folk Gravel.
I don't think people get my humor. No. But I literally like made a video where like I was a baker, I was God, and I had a bent pan, and I was making bread that was deformed and getting pissed off.
I get it.
when people wanted like a discount for the fucked up bread. And then like when people were like, hey, do you want to like get a fresh pan? No, this is the pan I made. I'm going to keep, but he keeps getting pissed off about the bread being a problem when he's the one making. Anyway, but yeah, that just kind of reminded me.
That's amazing.
Of that.
I filmed it. I never recorded it, but I was going to do my like first skit. And one of the first skits I was going to do is when I had we had our little boy Atlas, or it was around the time we were about to have him. And I put a little camera in his crib, and I hung over the crib, and and the text, there was going to be text that says like, Christian parents be like? And I was going to say all the things to the baby, like just my face, that Christians don't say, but that they mean. So like,
What?
you were
Yes.
born in sin. Oh,
You sinful little
you're
baby.
you're destined for hell unless you accept our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Oh, beautiful, perfect creature.
Right.
You were knitted in the womb,
Demon's gonna
perfect by
get you.
God. Yeah, you better not be gay because God hates homosexuality. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and
Oh,
just like
shit.
all the things that actually come with Christianity that are never taught
Yes.
to, that aren't actually verbalized. You imagine someone saying that to their kid. Yeah.
But that's normalized. And that's like how people become radicalized, because they hear these things and think that it's normal to go to somebody's door and tell them there's a possibility that they're going to have to tell their child they can't live because they need a blood transfusion. I mean, they won't do that, but that is the
Yeah.
reality of like what's
I
happening.
wish they just like came and like gave the strongest foot
Truth.
forward, like just like not like, there's more to life, or do you know how you can be happy, like just like, do you know blood transfusions are actually of the devil, and like I wish they just came. I have a question that my mum asked me to ask you, and she's going to watch this when she gets back from work. But
All right, Mom.
is Jesus an archangel?
Oh yeah, that the Jehovah's
So
Witnesses believe that Jesus is Michael the archangel.
where do they
I
get that
forget.
from?
I'd have to do the research to tell you, unless maybe Eric or somebody else knows in the audience. I cannot remember. I can get back to you on that. But yeah, that actually, I remember people laughing at me in 5th grade. In 5th grade, because we're supposed to, like, as Jehovah's Witnesses, you're supposed to go to school and preach to people. And I remember preaching to people, like I just learned this whole thing about Jesus being Michael the archangel. So I was telling people like, yeah, Jesus is Michael the, and I think it has also something to do with, because that can also now put Jesus into the Hebrew Bible, right? That's always like something, Christians want to do, is they're trying to retroject his ass back into history.
Well, and they have a very specific translation of the Bible, but what I want to ask, and they say it's the most accurate or whatever, but what I want to ask is like, what, they say that, right? Though, like
they say it.
That. Yeah, but we find new manuscripts all the time, and things are being adjusted all the time. So, like, I'm confused why they think they have the best when we have newer manuscripts. Like, we have manuscripts that are earlier, or that change our understanding of things, that like things need to develop. Like, how, like, does the Jehovah's Witness Bible change? Is there different translations?
It changes. So it's changed, but it's only to back up like the
Watchtower.
Exactly, like their beliefs. But like, for instance, John 1:1, and the word was a deity. Like it says something like, not the word was God, but the word was a deity. So like Jesus was divine is what like John 1:1 is trying to say, right? That's it. But they say, they change it to, I can't remember, but it's just like one word that they change just to make it
Logos?
fit their theology a little bit. It's just like, it's either was or is. They changed either the was to a is, or the is to a was. So that's it. So it's just a simple word, but it can completely change like the theological process behind it. Because other people use that for their Trinity, but they don't believe in the Trinity, but they want to put Jesus in the beginning. So that's their in to say like, oh yeah, Jesus was there at like creation. He was there with God, like God used him. Like they put Jesus probably in the let us make man in our image.
Yeah. Wow. So Vito Media, my boss. So Michael / Jesus came and told Mary that he was going to give birth to himself.
I thought that is that Gabriel, guys. I am not sure. Like, I haven't really looked at it in a
someone
moment.
Said,
I think it's Gabriel. A God instead of God. Thank you. So they just changed one word and put a God, because he is a God, but he's not the God.
Since God's
Not the same
word,
God.
no indicates there are two. Oh, okay, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Jesus, logical.
Oh, Bible teach books since God's. Oh, one hundred Jesus logic concludes Michael's no other than Jesus Christ is. Oh, thank you. Okay, there's no other logical conclude. Really, is that the only? And they'll do a lot of those like false narratives like that. It's the only logical conclusion. Yeah, no, we don't live like in a world where that's the only logical conclusion. There's many logical conclusions. It ain't real.
Yeah. There's wow. Yeah, I know. It's just
you have to laugh or you just end up like crying.
Yeah, I know. It's a funny situation. It's just so bizarre. So let's jump onto some super chats as we and thank you everyone who's super chatted, and thank you for the members. If you want to become a member, links in the description, and obviously just the Patreon as well. But thank you everyone who supports this channel. You make it so much more enjoyable, the community here, and thank you guys so much. So we have one from Skeptics and Scoundrels, $5. What are your thoughts on the Jehovah's Witnesses cult status? I favor the bite model, so I lean heavy towards calling them such.
Oh, yeah. I don't have a problem calling them a cult. I don't have a problem calling them a closed practice. Like I completely get that like cult really has like a different connotation, like in the ancient world. Like that's what you did. You built a cult for your God. That's the norm. So it's really not weird, but when you put in the whole like control of it, like controlling all the behaviors and emotions and thoughts and everything, then cult takes a completely different connotation. I think it does turn people off, sadly. But
is it like cult curious? Maybe like
cult curious.
Curious, like they're dabbling in the cult. Like, you know what I mean? They're like, no.
Well, I think just like, for instance, the Jehovah's Witnesses, we were raised being told we're not in a cult. And I know that probably sounds weird to people, but when somebody's standing on a podium and making jokes about why you're not in a cult, you just don't think you're in a cult. You think a cult as somebody who's drinking Kool-Aid, who's, ready to run themselves into a building or something like that with something strapped to their body, right? That's what they teach us is a cult. And we don't really have the wherewithal, like the cognizance, to understand everything that encompasses what happens. And thank God for Stephen Hassan for creating the bite model. I don't know if there was anything before that, but that was what really helped to shake my brain up to say, oh my God, it is. Like if this is what society is saying is a cult, then yeah, the Jehovah's Witnesses are a cult. And I will say closed practice or high control to maybe try to not light that fire and turn like people's back hairs up and make them like shiver and want to recoil from me. But I can only do, you can only do so much. They're a freaking cult, man. They're being controlled. They're being brainwashed. Their mind is mush. My mind was mush. It still is mush. I'm trying to make it not mushy, but that's a little difficult.
Yeah, same. I feel like my brain keeps getting more mushy with the more deep drinks I do, because the more alcohol I consume at 10 in the morning. But one of the things, one of the things I wanted to ask is, you have, you grew up for 40 years with the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Well, okay.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, you grew up for 40 years with the Jehovah's Witnesses, and you've only recently deconstructed. Let's say the windows start shaking. There's an earthquake happening. The sky is red. Are you panicking? Like, are you still afraid of Armageddon? Do you still have some deep, are you afraid of hell?
I am afraid of humans. Humans terrify me. I guess before I really didn't have that fear because we were always taught that God wouldn't let anything bad happen to the earth because the earth was going to be his paradise. And now I realize that was just a way to trick us to allow the earth to be used as this like resource that we're always just grabbing at and trashing it and using it at our disposal, not really caring about the ecosystems that, depend, and the people that depend, and like, drinking water. So now I'm afraid, because I realize that things could go really bad really fast, that there's not a God like sitting up there making sure that button doesn't get pushed. And not that I think somebody's going to go do that. I mean, God, sure, I hope not. But that is what I fear. Like, yeah, man, like that Armageddon, that kind of stuff, like it just does not go away. There's some days where it's great. I don't have many nightmares anymore. They're far and few between. But there's some times, like especially during COVID, when I first started deconstructing, where my body would just be shaking as I was researching, because I was realizing, wow, there's nobody who's going to stop us from a calamity. Like it could go really bad really quickly. And then like I'm thinking, oh my God, slavery. Like we were told like slavery had to happen because we needed to prove that we needed God. Let all the bad things happen, because then when God fixes it, it's like, oh, you can't have the sunshine without the rain. That kind of logic. Like, yeah, we needed slavery. So now like all these fail systems are just like, my ship is sinking. And I was really afraid, which is why like Derek for me was like kind of like a lifeboat. Like all these people who were like critically thinking about the Bible were literally like saving me from having panic attacks, like realizing that Moses wasn't real. Like I'm like, oh, like little by little, I was like, oh, like people will actually lie to you, like straight, bold face lie to you. Why? For gain, for power, you name it. And I didn't know that people were capable of that. I know it sounds naive, but that's just the kind of the world I lived in. And realizing that, oh yeah, people don't care. They will just take from you. They will see your vulnerability and they will play on that. And religion is a huge way for the power hungry to build a system that like they will have victims at their disposal, just at the ready. And if something goes bad, a guy does wrong, they just ship him off to the next place. It's just how the system works.
It's the same with oh my God, I'm losing my train of thought.
It's because I talk a lot.
No, it's the I think it's the alcohol. It's hitting me funny.
I like it.
Lovely. I totally lost my question. I apologize, everyone. Yeah, it's but I wanted to. Oh yes, one of the things I wanted to ask about. So when it comes to Armageddon, so are there like failed prophecies? Like how do they get around the problems that are in the Bible that I talk about on Myth Vision, where it's like this generation shall not pass away until they see all these things happen, the coming of the Son of Man, all that stuff. How do they get around that? People standing here will not taste death until they see the Son of Man coming in the cloud.
Well, see that's so simple. All you have to do is elevate one scripture over another, and they do it all the time. Like literally, that's what Christian theology is. It's ignoring what verses you don't want, throwing those out, and keeping the ones you do like. You can just explain away something that doesn't fit your theology. The Bible is like, it's rubber. It's flexible, baby.
It's the big book of pick and choose.
It really is. I had no, I was taught the Bible's inerrant. There's no contradictions. And now I realize it's a library. It's a library that got shoved into one book. It had no business being made one book, especially not the Hebrew Bible with the Christian scriptures. Like that to me is completely audacious. Like if it were up to me, if I were God, I'd snap my fingers and chop that thing. Like in the Red Sea, I'd part that motherfucking Bible right down the center.
I asked Megan Lewis this, who's a Christian, and I said, where does it say in the Bible to? Yeah, I do say. Where does it say in the Bible to condense everything into one perfect book? Like, where does it say that? Like, it doesn't say it anywhere
It doesn't.
in the Bible. And also, like, you could make the argument that it could be the devil doing this, because, you know, God gave us the Holy Spirit on the day of Pentecost.
Yes.
Maybe that was his plan all along. You know, maybe it was the
Yes.
devil to credit, you know, but then again, I'm using the doctrine of the Bible to kind of say that the Bible shouldn't be.
Right.
So
right.
yeah, but it's
and that's tough. That's tough, like, to play. Like, when I'm making content, I think I completely confuse people with where my beliefs are, because I'll be talking about, like, Baal Hadad as if he's real and la la la, and I have people who follow me who worship him, right? So here I am, like, somebody who's a non-believer, but I absolutely, like, adore this God, and I have to at times, like, put myself into the Bible as if I believe it, because I'm using the arguments inside the Bible to prove certain things.
You're talking theology.
Right. So it's confusing for people at times, and it's confusing for me. I'm like, oh, I didn't say that. I don't actually believe it. I don't actually believe it. But hey, if you do, that's super cool. And I'm glad that I can help you on your journey.
It's like a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, where it's like you've got to invest into the rules, and it's kind of like, and to understand it. But what it is I love this analogy, because it's like, sometimes, you know, an atheist is like trying to talk to people who are in a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, and like the house is burning down, and it's like just trying to get them to be serious so they can leave the house because it's burning down. Like, it's like, guys, we just like pump the brakes. Like, obviously this is fun, but like, let's just it's not like, you know, let's be serious for a second.
Right.
But well, thank you so much, Ryan, for coming on the show. It's been there's so much more we could talk about, but you're just like a well of information on this stuff. Your channel has just got hundreds of videos. Guys, go check out, go subscribe, and of course the links are in the description, and the links are your other channel links are posted further up in the chat, so you can go check out your other channels there. But you have so much content, and of course on your TikTok as well. It's just jam packed.
I'm a bit of a weirdo. I might not be everybody's cup of tea. That's okay. I completely understand. I just hope that you understand that it might sound like what I'm talking about is something that I believe or practice. It's actually just because I'm passionate about it. I think that this ancient history is super cool, and I wish I would have known the truth about it versus being given this, like, specific narrated book, an idea, when I kind of get this watered down mishmash of white milk toast soup. That's just kind of like unseasoned chicken, you know what I'm saying? But like, there's so, like, the other day I uncovered, like, the fact that, like, lips can mean lips, and, like, fruit can mean right. And there's this one, like, Bible verse about adulteresses, and he was like, a woman will eat and then wipe her mouth and say, like, I didn't do anything. And he wasn't talking about eating food and wiping her lips. Let's just say that. And I was like, and I'm talking to my rabbi friend, because that's one of the shows I do is with my rabbi friend. And he's like, yeah, absolutely. Like, we get this, like, purity culture, like, oh God, we can't talk about penis and vagina. And it was right there in the Bible. They were all kind of euphemisms. It's rocking. Like, you can appreciate the Bible, but you don't have to, like, believe it. And that's where I'm at in my journey.
I love religion. I just don't think it's true. But I really do appreciate many aspects of it. I just don't like things like Quran 434, which, you know, says to husbands, you can beat your wives, or, you know, or the Jehovah's Witnesses blood transfusions, like that, or people pushing against LGBT folks, and I just don't like that kind of stuff.
That's where I draw the line. If it makes you happy, if it's comforting to you, I will support you. I would even march with you to keep your rights to have your religion.
Yeah,
honestly, 100%. But the moment you encroach on me, you like, back the fuck up. That's where I draw the line. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been an awesome interview.
It was good talking to you.
Yeah, it's been great. And hopefully we'll do some stuff together in the future. But until then, see everyone later.
If you want to do any skits, you let me know.
Oh, yeah, we could do that. That's cool. All right.
Bye.
See ya.